What's going on, everyone, here in the Snaps family? It is a Thursday, 1:30, a little late start today, but I had a coach's calls for my game this weekend, and our special guest, Alyssa Lang, is joining us right now because our boy T-Bob is in Disney just chasing around the three kiddos, having an absolute blast. So we are going to be very much a heavy SEC focus today as we start to look ahead to some of the games this weekend once again. And then just overall big thoughts on the SEC. But to my right, left, wherever we're looking at right now, Alyssa, who I always enjoy working with at SiriusXM, does a terrific job there. And then you can catch her on the sidelines, bouncing around on the SEC network between the two top crews there, week in and week out. Appreciate you filling in for T-Bob.
If you had told me that I was here for T-Bob, I would have come with better jokes. I would have made sure that my humor was in a place where it really needs to be before this. These are big shoes to fill. So I'm kind of glad you sprung it on me right before we started. Yes. That's who I was here for, but that's on me for not making that realization earlier.
It's all good. Listen, the people of Snaps always need a show that's a little bit more PG. A little bit of show that's not as graphic. I don't know how many times you've maybe seen clips.
Don't they tune in for that type of show?
I think it's a good mix. I still am waiting for the day when YouTube kicks us off for some of the stuff that we do discuss on the channel. It gets a little raunchy at times, but it definitely keeps everyone on their toes. And we're hoping to get T-Bob back either Sunday or maybe Monday. So we'll keep you guys posted on that. But let's get into some of these games, though. It's another good week of games. Obviously, you being a South Carolina gal, me being a Georgia guy, it's a big weekend for our two schools. And let's start with the Georgia-Florida game first. Florida just announced that they will be without Eugene Wilson. They'll be without their star defensive back as well. Not what you want heading into the game. So let's focus on Florida first. The underdog, 16.5-point underdog heading into this game. I had him a couple weeks ago versus Kentucky. I don't know how much you've had him this year, but I've been impressed with what I've seen from them so far. What's your take on the Gators?
Yeah, unfortunately, I haven't gotten to see them up close and personal. And you know how this goes when you get to go to a campus or even for an away game and sit and meet with the coaches and really pick their brains about what this roster looks like. You learn so much more than you ever could just watching them on TV. So unfortunately, I don't have that perspective on Florida this season, but I mean, Aaron, this Florida team has only gotten better as the weeks roll on. Certainly when you look at this defense. I was watching SEC Now last Tuesday and other, Bulldog great Matt Stinchcomb was circling this game as all of a sudden being a game that he's a little bit more concerned about from Georgia's perspective. And I certainly agree with that. I mean, you've got a situation where Florida has absolutely nothing to lose. Certainly when it compares to Georgia, we know what happens in the SEC when you have situations like that. But I think it's the Florida defense that has impressed me the most. And there's so much we could talk about with DJ Lagway and stepping in for Graham Mertz. The fact that Graham Mertz has still been there with him every step of the way in the locker room throughout game day, helping him prepare, I think has really been key in helping DJ Lagway take over the starting range, which hopefully he'll have for a long time there in Gainesville. But that defense that got bullied by Miami and that defense that got pushed around and at times out-efforted in the trenches against Miami week 1 looks a lot different going into this game. So I'm cautiously optimistic that we get a better game than some of the ones we've seen in recent years. I think your Georgia team ends up rolling and ends up getting a fairly easy win, but I wonder what the start looks like. Knowing how DJ Lagway and how talented he is, certainly with the deep ball, which we saw at length against Kentucky before maybe we realized that Kentucky was the team that they appear to be now. But we've also seen Georgia's secondary give up some explosives to teams that they really had no business being in games against. I was there for Mississippi State. So there's a couple elements for Florida that I look at this and I go, okay, can you test Georgia's secondary, which has been not only tested, but also depleted a little bit from an injury standpoint, create some of those explosives and jump out to an early score? All of a sudden, maybe we're talking about a different football game.
Well, not only from an injury standpoint, but from a targeting standpoint too. I mean, you're without Dan Jackson, you're without Aguero to start this football game, and I'm with you too. Hell, go back to the beginning of the season versus Clemson. Clemson left a lot on the table when it came to explosive plays down the field. And I think Klubnik is for those who watch the show and who follow me on social media, for the Clemson fans, have seen my newfound appreciation for Klubnik as he's matured as a quarterback this season, but was not as great, not a great game for him to start with. So for Georgia, you had the great victory versus Texas. You played extremely well defensively. Can you do that now against what everyone this week has talked about in the state when I talk about Georgia football? Is like, oh, but we're not good against mobile quarterbacks. And I don't think anyone's good against mobile quarterbacks. Like, that's the beauty of having a mobile quarterback. They're an absolute bitch to prepare for.
Yeah, look at LSU on Saturday night against Marcel Reed when he comes in, right? Totally different.
Little less prepared. Yeah, a little less prepared. And I think your Gamecocks will be a little bit obviously more prepared when we get to that one. But I think for DJ, it's going to be, he's been into Knoxville and struggled at times in that game, but still to do what he did late on the road. I still think Kentucky's a quality defense. While they may not be as good as maybe we thought based on the previous couple of weeks, still a quality defense. So I don't know if the necessarily the talent difference between a Tennessee's defense this year or Kentucky's defense is going to be huge difference going against Georgia. So he should feel confident. To me, playing this game for 4 years, it's more of just being able to control your emotions in a rivalry game. Control your emotions in Jacksonville, knowing what this game means to your fan base, to your season, to your coach and his job, all that. It's if he can be mature at 18, 19 years old, that's going to be something that he's going to have to keep in check early. Flipping over to Georgia, you had them a couple weeks ago versus Mississippi State.
Yep.
The offense, the inconsistencies there. What are your concerns with Carson and these receivers?
Yeah, I mean, with Carson, it's turnovers, right? He has more turnovers through this point in the season right now than he did for the entire year last year. And I know some of those balls have been tipped, and you've probably diagnosed those more than anybody as far as how many were Carson's fault, how many were receiver's fault, how many were, not necessarily the fault of bad decision-making from him, but it just hasn't quite been the season that we thought it was going to be from Carson Beck so far. That being said, you talk about the emotions of this game and not only that, but the entirety of the SEC season. Carson Beck has stayed cool, calm, collected no matter what. And when I was there for that Mississippi State game, we talked with Kirby Smart a lot about how, and I don't want to put words in his mouth because he didn't use the word unfair, but I will. In a sense, it's been unfair to measure Georgia, certainly I would say through the first 5 weeks of the season, against the Georgia team of 2023, knowing how much more challenging the schedule was in 2024, the way they started the year, Clemson's defense, Kentucky's defense, jumping into conference play, going on the road to Tuscaloosa, the way that this team has been tested, no one talked about how difficult of a schedule Georgia had. They didn't get enough credit for that. I think we're not only seeing that come into play with Carson Becker, we have not only seen that come into play with him, but also the product of having lost some of the best pass catchers that we've not only seen in Georgia history, but in SEC history, right? I watch Georgia fans and I get it, but sit there and go, well, when's Oscar Delp and Lawson Lucky? When are they going to step up? Well, no one's going to step up to the level of Brock Bowers, right?
Who's leading the NFL in receptions right now as a rookie, 21-year-old rookie leading the NFL.
Brock Bowers is a cyborg, a football cyborg. And he was made in a lab, and I don't think they have any more versions of him coming out anytime soon. So not only do you lose a lot, you step into this 2024 schedule that's insanely difficult. But Carson Beck also has been dealing with this changing cast around him. Who am I going to be able to trust the most? Is it an Arian Smith who has a breakout season, who we saw a couple drop balls in that game against Mississippi State? And I don't want to be unfair to Arian, but there were some of those plays where you're going, Arian, you got to catch that. You got to make that catch. Kirby told us that day, all that said, that with all those moving parts, that their greatest weapon is the confidence of Carson Beck and the confidence that Carson has in himself. And it was fascinating to talk to him and then Carson about where that comes from for them. But that will be, you talk about emotions, what I look at for Georgia early is, what is this? Does this offense look like the, maybe not well-oiled machine, but the well-oiled machine up here? If we go 3 and out, if we have a turnover, how does Carson Beck come out there and respond? Does it look the same as it has all season long? If that's the case, I'm not necessarily worried about it. What I'm really excited to see, though, and I'm curious to get your take on this, is what kind of game does Trevor Etienne have? Because you talk about the emotions and everything. Coach Napier was asked about it. Hey, we've played against other guys who have gone to other SEC teams. Yeah, but you haven't played against a guy who went to one of your most bitter rivals in this game in
Mhm.
Jacksonville. So the run game for Georgia is something I'll be very curious to see
Yeah.
how fast it gets going.
And I asked Noshan Moreno about this. Obviously, for those that watch Georgia, know Noshan in how passionate he is as a runner and a football player. And I did ask, like, could you be too pumped up for a game? Because Etienne, obviously, he's turned out to be the guy. He's kind of the best player on the offense side of football. He's going to get his touches. But we talk about controlling your emotions for DJ Lagway. I think this is the same thing for Etienne, where you don't want to wear yourself out.
Right.
You don't want to play the game before the game starts. You don't want to, during the week of practice, go a little bit too aggressive. You don't want to, in pregame warmups, get yourself too pumped up. And Noshan's like, I did that in certain games where I would wear myself out before the game even started. So I think for Etienne, it's collecting your emotions. I don't believe in this era where guys are so accustomed to transferring, even if it is to your biggest rival, where there's going to be Florida defenders trying to like take him out. Like, I don't think it's going to get to that point. Like, I think these guys they're more mature. They understand this is almost like the mini NFL. It's a business decision, yada, 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 yada. So, and I'm sure they're still friends. Like, I talk to Georgia guys all the time. Like, oh, like before the Kentucky game, I had Kentucky the week after, and I was asking Brock. He's like, dude, I'm in a group thread with like a bunch of Georgia players. We were talking about the game before the game started that week. So all these guys are buddy. So for the fans that think that like Florida players are going to be out there, trying to poke him in the eyeballs and take his knees out, like that's not the case.
Not
My
him
main worry is
specifically. That's just how you look at this game in general. Is that you're trying to kill a guy on the other side, but not
that's just how you play.
Etienne. Yeah.
But for Etienne, it is like, yes, keep your emotions in check, and I think he's going to be just fine. But he's someone like you talk about the Carson in the pass game. I do think for Bobo, as you reevaluate the first part of the season, you do say, what is our strength? When our offense line's healthy, we're pretty damn good. When Etienne's out there, he's special. And that has to be your bread and butter. And I think Carson has to be a little bit more protective of the football. And, for Georgia, the defense plays the way they can. You may not lose another game if that's the recipe. It may not be sexy. It may not be 50 points per game. But guess what? It's going to win you 90% of the time. So that should be all that matters. 16.5-point favorite is Georgia. T-Bob and I made our picks the other day. We have Georgia winning, but Florida covering. What are your thoughts?
It's funny. It's almost like y'all are reading Chris Doering in my minds on our SEC Sirius XM show, because we said the exact same thing. I said, I like Georgia in this game, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's a little bit closer. I mean, how about a 10-point game? Let's make it a little bit more interesting in Jacksonville. I do think Georgia ends up getting the win. Obviously, like I said, they have so much more riding on this one, and knowing what they still have ahead of them for the remainder of the season. I just think at this point, Georgia's roster has too much talent to lose this game. I'm telling this to the person that doesn't need to know this, but Georgia wins this game.
Yes, Georgia just has a little bit more talent, but hey, I would like to see Billy keep his job. I've always liked
and I honestly that being said, I love Graham Mertz, and it broke my heart for Graham Mertz to be hurt for the season. And you've gotten to talk to him, and he's just, what a stand-up, football aside, what a stand-up human. But I mean, you can see Graham Mertz's fingerprints now on the future and on DJ Lagway, and the fact that he has hung around. And I do wonder, in today's day and age, does a player of the caliber like DJ Lagway, who was a huge recruit, landed in Gainesville, there's a reason why he wanted to come to Gainesville. It was to play for Billy Napier, and they've won 3 of the last 4 now. So you sit there and you go, pump the brakes on the Billy Napier talk, Florida fans. Like, the grass may not be greener if you lose this young star quarterback.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If you let Billy go, the open market for DJ Lagway and the amount of money that he is going to command if he does leave Florida is going to be crazy. So don't think that that's not already in the back of his mind now. But you get rid of the coach, that he would be silly not to test the open market if Billy left and just see. He would be the highest paid quarterback in college football if he left after the season.
There were a lot of big programs that wanted DJ Lagway, and the fact that he stayed loyal to Florida, stayed committed to Florida, even when others in that signing class didn't. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I think that also speaks volumes about Billy Napier and this staff as well. And I don't want that to fly under the radar either.
DJ Lagway to Georgia, says BB. That would be Georgia's dream to get a
I
mobile
think there
quarterback
was
from their
already a
rival.
quarterback committed to Florida who did take a trip but ended up on Georgia's roster. I think we've already done that.
Yes. All right. So that is the Georgia-Florida game. Quick comment in here. This is from Andy J. Best thing about Alyssa Lang is you can tell she generally loves college football.
I
the
do.
college football experience and the SEC culture.
I don't know how you are, Aaron, but before all of our games, like I had Texas Vandy on Saturday, and I'll sit there right before our open. I go, I can't believe I get to do this. I can't believe they paid me.
You had some great games this year too, especially with Vandy. My goodness,
I'm the Vandy team reporter at this point. I think I've done 4 Vanderbilt games.
Hey, that's a good thing that you get to go to Nashville.
The Pavia party don't stop.
Yeah. Yes. Oh man, you have experienced one of the greatest moments in the SEC this season with Pavia after the game. We turn. What did he say, bitch?
He said another fun word that we probably can't say. I'm not going to say.
You're not. See, I told you can't replace T-Bob because you're not willing to say it.
But T-Bob's not here.
You're too mature for us. All right, let's move it over to what I believe is probably the best game of the weekend. Texas A&M, after their monster win this past weekend, taking on South Carolina after the bye. I had South Carolina first game of the season, maybe second game. First game, I had them Old Dominion. Ooh, I walked out of that stadium and I said,
I texted you during that game.
Yeah. I was telling Dave Neal after the game, I was like, holy shit, South Carolina may be the worst team in the SEC.
I think I texted you and I said, please tell me that we're only 10% into the playbook. And this is just them trying to hide things from everyone.
I think I was honest. I was like,
yeah, that's exactly what they're doing.
But my God, they look pretty damn good all of a sudden. I mean, it's been a great season for South. They are truly, and you can say, I also, you can say this about a couple teams, not every team, a couple teams. They are a couple plays away from really being like 6-1.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
the pick 6 versus LSU is BS. And then, he fumbles it versus Alabama. Lenoris does when they were winning the game. I mean, they're a couple plays away from being 6-1. Probably
they're
right
a
the top
2-point conversion away from beating Alabama on the road. I said it this morning on our radio show. You said it. They're coming off a bye. Have the buys for South Carolina this year not come at the absolute worst times? Their last bye came right after that LSU game. I'm not sure I've ever seen a roster or fan base so pissed off after a conference game like I saw South Carolina pissed off after LSU. Those boys were out for blood. They get the week off. I think they kind of settle down a little bit. Then Ole Miss comes to town and South Carolina gets popped. They just go to Norman 2 weeks ago and lay down a defensive beatdown on the Sooners. 9 sacks by 9 different players, Aaron. And then they go home for a bye before they get ready for Texas A&M. It's kind of like, I mean, you tell me. I'd rather keep playing at that point.
I know it's like Georgia, Texas. I was like, Georgia beats Texas. You kind of want to keep it rolling a little bit, and then you get the bye. I mean, Florida's probably the same way with being Kentucky the way they did. But I don't know if the 9 sacks means as much because Oklahoma just gave up 10 sacks this past week. So they did get 1 up. So it doesn't feel as special knowing that everyone is actually beating the crap out of Oklahoma quarterbacks this season.
Oklahoma is the only team that has given up more sacks along the offensive line this year than South Carolina has. So as much as we talk about South Carolina and their defensive front, which should be celebrated, South Carolina's offensive line still cannot protect. 32 sacks on the quarterback this year for South Carolina. OU has allowed 39. That's second to last and last in FBS. Not
All
great.
right, so I gave my thoughts the other day on the show, so I'm gonna let you go first on this one, and you could pick either team or just overall kind of bounce back and forth. Your gut for this football game?
I think Texas A&M wins this game. It is hard for me to look at this matchup on paper and pick South Carolina. That's not to say that I don't think South Carolina has a chance. I absolutely think they do. Here's the formula for South Carolina. They cannot turn the football over. Not one time. Lenora Sellers has to either hang on to the football and not put it on the ground like he did against Kentucky 3 times. Somehow South Carolina recovers all of those. No interceptions. And I think the defense or special teams has to spot you at least a touchdown or 2. Just like the way it started against Oklahoma.
You think it's that big of a difference talent gap wise?
I do. I was there in Norman. I had that game. And as lopsided as the final score was, defense puts the first 2 touchdowns on the board. In the second half, the South Carolina offense really struggled to move the football, whether it was through the air or on the ground. You had a couple of nice, Nice drives. Lenora Sellers found Joshua Simon, I think, in the corner of the end zone. Beautiful throw. But there were also more 3-and-outs than I would have liked for a 25, 30-point lead at that point for a defense that was very much on its heels for Oklahoma and was very exhausted at that point. So the offense makes me a little bit nervous. Now, there is something to be said, and you could speak to this better than anybody. Lenora Sellers is still so young in his career as an SEC starting quarterback. Shane Beamer pointed this out. He gets hurt, in the second half of the LSU game that changes the entire game with Robbie Ashford coming in. He doesn't play against Akron. These are valuable reps, certainly in an Akron game, for a first-time starter to continue to get more comfortable with his offense, continue to get more comfortable with the playbook, that Lenora Sellers hasn't quite had as many that you would have wanted him to at this point, October 31st. So with the bye week, Dal Loggins getting more comfortable with what he's got with Lenoris, some of these pieces having stepped up. Mazio Bennett, true freshman wide receiver, love this kid. Do they come out with a better offensive game plan for Lenoris week after week after week? I think we've seen that. But this is a Texas A&M defensive front that is an NFL defensive front. Nick Scorton, Shamar Stewart, Shamar Turner. These guys will be playing on Sunday. So when I look at the defensive fronts, I'm kind of rambling now about this game. I think that they're about even what South Carolina's defense and Texas A&M's defense shows up with. The difference are the offensive lines and the fact that South Carolina's offensive line has allowed the quarterback to be sacked 32 times so far this season.
But what quarterback do you trust the most, though? Like, I think you have two.
Between Wegman
one's
and
a redshirt freshman. There's no way you play Wegman. I think Wegman.
I think Reed won that job last year.
Yes, the reason I'm talking about between South Carolina and A&M, you have two young quarterbacks. Reed. He played on the road against Florida, played well, but that's before we talk about Florida's defense has significantly improved since then. And maybe this is because I have nightmares. I hated playing in South Carolina. I sucked playing in South Carolina. That place is going to be
section. Here, nuts. I'll T-Bob it up. I was in the student section, hammered drunk, watching your ass get put on a turf right in front of the student section.
That place sucks.
I know.
It is so difficult to play. It is a 7:30 game. Those fans are going to make that place shake. I'm telling you, for those who have never been to South Carolina, it is one of the most intimidating places to play in college football. You have a true freshman playing quarterback against that defense and that defensive line. We were ranked in the top, I think, 5, and y'all ranked like 9 or 10 when we played my junior year. Y'all beat the living shit out of us. It wasn't even close. I'm telling you, weird things happen in that stadium, especially when you guys have a defense like that.
Yeah.
So it comes down to which of these young quarterbacks do you trust the most?
It's a
quarterback at home or a quarterback like Marcel Reed, who now the defense has time to prepare for, that's coming off a bye week, that's feeling healthy, and he's making a start in this game in this environment.
Yeah, and it's funny because not that they wouldn't have, but it was my immediate reaction on Monday when we were talking about the fact that, LSU looked to maybe not be ready for Marcel Reed to be inserted into that game. I remember being on the phone with some South Carolina defensive guys getting ready for the Oklahoma matchup, and I was talking to Debo Williams, who's been there for 5 years now. I believe he's in his 5th year. And I said, going through the tape, you ask about what you're seeing on the other side. I said, well, what stands out to you about this quarterback? And in my head, I'm thinking Michael Hawkins Jr., because that's who we've seen for the past 3 games. And he said, well, which one? So that's actually a great question. I guess you've been watching both. You've been watching Jackson Arnold and Michael Hawkins Jr., which proved to be great for South Carolina, with Jackson Arnold getting inserted after 3 drives in that game. So no concern for me at all that South Carolina's defense will be prepared for either one, but they are so different, to your point. I want to ask you this because I don't know what I think is going to happen on Saturday or even moving forward, but do you think there's a world where they start to use both? Do you think
No.
Okay.
No.
We're just riding Reed.
You have to ride Reed. I don't think that there is no confidence, and there should be no confidence from the coaching staff and for players on the team that Connor Wegman's the guy. There's too many turnovers
where there wasn't a lot of trust out there on Saturday night.
He's had one good game. Yeah. He's had one good game, and it was against Missouri. Now we've seen kind of Missouri exposed this season, so we don't know if they are a good team or not a good team. But other than that, he's played really bad football. He played bad football versus Notre Dame. He played, I would say, not great football versus McNeese. It was kind of average. Mississippi State, he should have thrown 4 interceptions. He threw 2. And then last week versus LSU, he looked lost. So why the hell would I put him out there, especially against one of the best defenses in the country, on the road, hostile environment. He is not proving to me that he can handle being a starting quarterback. So I don't know what you're going to get out of us.
Excited? Why are you getting me pumped up?
I think South Carolina wins.
I'm going to be
South
there.
Carolina wins.
I'm actually going to be there. Yeah. Not
what
working.
I'm
going to be there. I'm not working this weekend. So.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Did you ask for the weekend off?
I did. I feel like I have to say it to make it not sound bad that I'm taking a weekend of college football off, but I feel kind of cheesy saying it. I'm getting an award from South Carolina, and it's homecoming weekend this weekend. So this is when they're giving it out during the game. So
congratulations.
I asked the bosses, I asked Zarzer, I said, is it like sacrilegious for me to ask for this weekend off to take something? And they were all like, you better not work.
What award are you winning? What are you winning?
It's an young alumni award, of the year award. So I'm very excited. I don't think I have tailgated a game as a fan in Columbia literally since my freshman year of college, because I worked after that. I worked on the weekends for the local station. So I haven't tailgated since I was 18 years old.
Damn, I hope they boo your ass for picking A&M to win the football game when they give you your award.
It's called reverse psych. If I picked South Carolina, I'd probably get a text from Coach Beamer like, come on, you're supposed to put out the poison that I can use as billboard material.
Hey, listen, I've picked against Georgia 3 times.
A&M's going to win by 90.
I've picked against Georgia 3 times, including Texas 2 weeks ago, and Georgia's won all 3 games. So,
there you go.
Dog fans should get me. I almost did. The first time I picked against Georgia, though, they played Mississippi State back in 2017. Picked Mississippi State to win. And I actually went to the game. So this was a mistake. It was my off week from calling games. And that's the week that first time I've ever picked against Georgia. I almost got into so many fights in the stadium, outside the stadium.
Have the players ever said anything to you?
No, but it was more like fans. Like, you're not a true dog. I was like, F you, bro. Like, I played 4 years, tore ligaments, broke bones, got 15 stitches in my chin. Like, I'm more of a dog than you'll ever effing be. Like, I got heated a couple times. It pissed me off. So
I do have a funny story to tell you about when I was in Athens this year for that Mississippi State game. So that was when South Carolina was on the road at Tuscaloosa. And that game, I think, was a noon start. And the Mississippi State-Georgia game was a 4:45. So, of course, it comes down to the final minute. And I am watching the game up in the press box with Taylor and Stinch. And I'm stressed out. I'm thinking, oh, my gosh, could you imagine South Carolina winning in Tuscaloosa? So we've got to go down to the field now to get ready for warm-ups and talk. And so now I'm watching it on my phone, just like walking down the stands. So, at Georgia, you just come down from the press box and then you just walk straight down the stands. So I'm standing there, going down the steps, holding my phone, watching the game. The amount of Georgia fans who saw that we were walking down, saw I was holding my phone and knew what I was watching and started saying, "Go Gamecocks!" I was like, y'all would never say those words. Any other time.
No.
When South Carolina is playing Alabama, and then they ended up putting the game up on the Jumbotron for maybe the last 30, 40 seconds. I'm standing over by the audio table by the hedges. Fans are walking by going, "Go Gamecocks, go Gamecocks, go Gamecocks." And then they lose. And throughout the rest of the game, the amount of people who passed by me, and they were like, "Man, I was pulling for your boys. I'm so sorry." It was just we all come together for mutual hatred.
Yes, all for mutual hatred 100% of the time. Okay, so what is A&M is a 2.5-point favorite, so you got them winning outright.
I think A&M wins. Yeah, it's just and I'm not saying it can't happen. Again, A&M's won 9 of the last 10, and the last time South Carolina won, Xavier Legette returned a kick to the house to open the game. I believe it was the opening kick. You need special teams magic, you need Beamer ball, and you need the defense to find the end zone. I think that's the formula.
I think all that's possible. A Beamer ball and defense find the end zone is very possible in this game.
It's very possible.
All right, one more game. We've kept Alyssa way too long. She's got to get ready for her big. Actually, you have no game to prep for this weekend. You have all the time in the world. No, I'm kidding.
You're not wrong, honestly.
You got so much time. It must be done. Well, hey, listen. I have Mississippi State for back-to-back weeks, so my game plan this week has been very easy.
Isn't that low-key so nice when you have the same I've had Vanderbilt 4 times. I'm like, "Hey guys, how's it going? Could you just give me a jersey? I would know the team this well."
Don't tell my bosses, but I've played golf already twice this week. I'm like, I don't have much to prep for.
I would assume that during a regular week.
That's true.
I would assume that if you had the Bama Georgia game, you'd still be getting 2 rounds.
I do. It doesn't help that Dave and I, who's my play-by-play guy, we're both we're members of the same club in Atlanta. So we play.
Yeah.
We have business meetings on the golf course. We
I was
talk about the
listening to
game.
y'all last week, and there was something. Dave said something about a bat. He was like, "I would spot that. I'd give him a little bit more." You were like, "Wow, you never spot me that well on the golf course."
You never give me a putt. Never gives me a putt
ever.
He has beat my butt the past couple of times. Damn it, Dave. All right, last game though. Quick thoughts on this one. Ole Miss going to Arkansas. Arkansas is another team like South Carolina that, like, holy smokes, they're a couple plays away from they themselves being, at least 6-2. Like, they should beat Oklahoma State. This should be 100% a 6-2 team, maybe 7-1. That the A&M game, turnovers killed them. Your thoughts on both these teams this season and how you see this one playing out?
In the spirit of it being Halloween, on my SEC Network show last night, Out of Pocket, we assigned certain players and coaches, teams, Halloween costumes. And the costume that I chose for Arkansas was a Chucky doll, because Chucky pretends to be this innocent, I'm just a little child's toy. I'm not going to do anything. And then all of a sudden you turn around and Chucky's got a knife and he's ready to kill you.
Yes.
That's how I feel about Arkansas right now. I look at this game this weekend. I went out on a limb this morning on the radio and I said, I like the Hogs. I like the Hogs in this game. I'm picking Sam Pittman. I'm picking Travis Williams. I think Travis Williams is going to be a head coach sooner rather than later in the landscape of college football. All that said, Arkansas, kind of bigger picture, look at some of the other teams that they have to play the remainder of the season. I just saw Texas last week in Nashville, and I'm thinking, okay, it's a one-loss Texas team. Who's their greatest threat moving forward for the rest of the year? And I think it's going to Fayetteville. I think in 2
not
weeks.
A&M? Not A&M?
Well, obviously A&M, like that goes without saying. But as far as like the upset alert,
yes, okay.
Let's be honest. Say A&M wins this weekend, and even if they're go in with that 1-2 losses into the Texas game, like that's not a bad loss for them. But Arkansas is not a 12-team college football playoff team at this point. And if you don't take the Hogs seriously, they're going to make you regret it in Fayetteville in a couple of weeks. So that's sort of my trap game, not only for Ole Miss this weekend, but for Texas. I love this Arkansas team. I think what Taylon Green and Bobby Petrino have been able to do, you look at some of the receivers that have stepped up. Obviously, we've known some of these names like a Luke Haas and an Isaac Teslaw, and some of those explosive opportunities that Bobby Petrino puts them in, and then the capitalization on that. We'll see how healthy the run game is for Arkansas, but similarly, Ole Miss hasn't really been able to run the football very well. If Trey Harris isn't healthy, if he's out again, if he's not 100%, that offense just looks a little bit different when Trey Harris isn't out there. This is I think we are collectively still sleeping on Ole Miss as a potential postseason team. I will say that. But we are also sitting here, I think, like measuring them and waiting for this explosive Ole Miss offense that we've become so used to, so much so that it's almost like we don't realize that this is just an elite defensive team. This is an elite defense that Ole Miss has. Certainly this defensive front. It's a team that's winning games based on defense. They're averaging 24 points a game in SEC play. Don't let the explosive numbers from the first 4 non-conference games fool you. This is a defensive, strong football team. So.
4 games for Ole Miss right now that they have not scored in the 30s. 4 games. Kentucky, South Carolina. Kentucky was 17. South Carolina was 27. LSU was 26. Then Oklahoma was 26. And those are all good defenses. 2 of them on the road in hostile environments. LSU was a night game. That's craziness. But still, for Lane Kiffin and a veteran quarterback with weapons to not score 30 points for over a month now is kind of weird to see. So I'm with you. Like, the defense is great. Defense is very talented. If Trey's not playing, I do worry about what this offense can do, pushing the ball vertically down the field. And then flip it over for me on the other side. Like, I've had Arkansas twice this year. I've had Taylon at his worst, and then I've had Taylon at his best, which was last week with 6 touchdowns. He is a physical freak. He is all 6'6", 230. The dude can run a 4.4. He can make plays in the backfield like Johnny Manziel. It all comes down to Taylon making the casual play, the easy play. And if he can do that along with his athleticism, I think they can make some plays against this talented defense. So I'm torn because I do think Ole Miss defense is great. Ole Miss, if Trey's there, I think they can score. Because Arkansas' secondary is still a little iffy to me. I mean, they're not great in the secondary. But I do think Taylon, when playing, and if he plays like he did last week, and at times this season, I think could be one of the best quarterbacks in this league. Like that
It
is how talented he is.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. It feels like we could take shades of what we saw from the Tennessee game, and I'm not necessarily comparing Tennessee's offense to Ole Miss's offense, not from a number standpoint, but some of those concepts, the talented
Mhm.
receivers, the speed that Tennessee and Ole Miss both have on the outside. Nico and Jackson, obviously two very different quarterbacks, but we saw Arkansas be able to assert their defensive dominance against Tennessee. And like you said, do enough offensively to
Yeah.
be able to get a huge win.
All right, let's get the chat real quick. Couple chats right here. Two for you. Here we go from Bo Molinari. Serious question for Alyssa. How sacrilegious is the Virginia Tech color scheme to pair beautiful maroon with nasty orange?
That's
What is he
tough.
talking about
So
here?
I have a Virginia Tech jersey sitting behind me.
Okay.
That's the jersey that I have right there. I think it's an awesome color scheme. Now, it is tough for me as a South Carolina grad to have orange in that color wheel because I'm, forbidden as a South Carolina alum to wear orange, which I will say I have and I do because I'm a brunette. It's a good color for me, but
Yes.
I would never wear it during Clemson week.
Ken, great show. Elizabeth Slade, go dogs. Oh, and congrats on the award.
Oh,
Uh,
thank
and
you.
and then last one, favorite SEC town to
Oh,
visit.
I feel bad because I get asked this question a lot and I feel like everyone's going to think that I'm lying. I love seriously all of them for different reasons.
Mhm.
There is a notes app in my phone of the best restaurants that I love to go to, and when I give people recommendations when they say where should I go in Athens or where should I go in Columbia or Nashville, I mean, they're all just incredible. They really are. I
Mhm.
will say, and I'm kind of, trying to play the bias a little bit to some of the viewers I think who are watching this show. I left Athens last time and I said, I don't think outside of Columbia, which is, my alma mater, I don't think that there is a fan base that is nicer to me than Georgia fans.
Well,
Like
it's because you're a stench. That's why
yeah,
you're a
that
stench.
probably is
It
why, but
helps.
I
It
just like
helps.
they just make so many nice comments and so many people who just have so many nice things to say. So I'm a little partial to Athens.
They're
I
nice
actually
because
really
they've
wanted
only
to go
lost
to
like
Georgia.
3 games in 4 years. That's
That's
why.
true.
So they're very
That's true.
happy.
I don't think
They're
I've
very happy.
ever called a Georgia loss, if we're being honest. I don't think I've ever been there and
There's been very few
watched the Dogs
opportunities to do
lose.
that. Before I let you go, my question: favorite restaurant in Athens?
Oh, this is bad because I've only
Five
been there once.
Bar, Last Resort,
There's a restaurant,
Chuck's.
and I can't remember the name. I'd probably recognize it if you told me. It's in like an old house.
Is it
It's
in 5 Points?
I don't think
Seafood
so.
spot?
You have to park. No, it's kind of like a southern cookie. Like it's more upscale. You park in the back. You walk
Is
around
it
front.
downtown or is it in 5 Points?
It's in. I'm not sure if I know where the 5 Points area begins and ends. If we're being honest,
Is it
gosh,
is it
this
in
is
downtown?
terrible.
Is it in
It's not in
downtown?
downtown. No,
So
it's
it's
kind
in
of in
5
like a
Points.
neighborhood sort of
Yeah, 5
vibe.
Points. Yeah.
Um, did
Marker 5, marker 7.
That sounds familiar. I need to
Probably
ask
that.
Stinch. It was
Yeah.
amazing. It was amazing.
Yeah.
We also went somewhere downtown last year. And again, this is awful. We don't get to go out to eat a ton, if we're being honest. And I don't know how it is for you guys, but with the 11 a.m. kicks, you're going to bed kind of early. We went
Mhm.
somewhere. It was in downtown, kind of on that same strip where the Chick-fil-A is on that side.
Yep.
And we walked up the stairs and we sat at a bar upstairs, and it was very, very good. Great cocktails, great
Mm.
food.
Mm.
See, I was so prepared to talk football and not prepared enough to talk restaurants. I'm blowing it. I'm absolutely blowing it.
It's okay. You just got to need more trips to Athens. More
That's what I
trips
need.
to Athens. All right. Well, we've kept you too long. I said 20 minutes and we're already at 40. So always just,
That's all right.
I miss working serious with you in the morning or in the afternoon. So I'm glad to get you on the show. I appreciate you filling in for our boy T-Bob as he is probably 10 beers deep in Disney. I don't know how T-Bob gets drunk
He needed
at
it after
Disney
the
watching
LSU
3
game.
kids. I don't know how he does it though.
I mean,
Like to
that's
get
great
drunk.
parenting, Like my
I
dad
don't
tells
know.
some story about when I was a baby. I'd fall asleep at like 4 or 5 o'clock. They
Yeah.
say, well, you gotta make sure that they don't sleep during the day so they don't keep you up at night. And my dad tells the story about how he'd take his cold Bud Light can and just like touch my foot with it as an infant. And I'd wake up.
Pop up.
I feel like that's child abuse in some form.
I
but,
will say, like when we went to Disney last year with our kids, we all slept so good because they didn't want to nap. So like
Yeah,
we
I
all,
bet.
from my wife to my 2 to myself, all fell asleep like 8 or 9, exhausted, and they didn't wake up to 8 o'clock the next day. Like all of us had 12 hours of sleep. So we felt great.
It's a cheat code. It's an
phenomenal.
expensive cheat code.
T-Bob's got the money, Bo. T-Bob's got the money. All right, well, that is it from Snaps. I will probably do some instant reactions at some point this weekend, Saturday or Sunday, and maybe after some of the good games as well, if I got some time in between my game. But we will keep you updated. So follow us on socials, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I appreciate Alyssa once again, and we will see you guys this weekend. Peace out.